Bad music. It's bad. Some people have said they don't like to listen to it and that they'd rather it didn't enter into their ear holes. But what if I were to tell you that some bad music is more baderist than others? What if there were songs that people couldn't stand, wanted to obliterate, wanted to grind into dust? Songs that they didn't like, that I, at the very least, like. Songs that appeared on the bottom 200 songs of each year between 2010 and 2019 to be specific, on Rate Your Music. And what if I were to pick one song from each year and title the video Most Overhated Songs of the 2010s? And what if that video was a video that you're watching right now? I don't know how to segue into this first bit. I'm just gonna hope that I sort out in the editing process. "2010, a big year for me personally. I met the Pope and asked if I could leave to go play Halo Reach. As you can expect, he was really proud of me. But what did this year bring us in terms of musical dregs? We have an X Factor cover of Many of Horror called When We Collide, a song that held the title of Worst Biffy cover until just recently. From the top, make it drop, in addition to that, we had Christina Perri, who made her mark with the MSN status anthem Jar of Hearts. Most importantly though, this was the year that you could get Molly on your phone. In amongst this pile though is a song that, given its name, should be soaring high above its competition. Granted, the artist in question would probably claim that he wouldn't be able to see the Earth's curvature while he was doing it, but whatever. Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky like shooting stars? I could really use a wish right now, wish right now, wish right now. It might be hard to imagine a time where B.O.B was inescapable, but that timeline did exist. Specifically the year between 2009 and 2010, we had not one, not two, but 3 top 10 hits. Now, I'm well aware that celebrities sing about how much they hate being celebrities is a really hated musical cliche, but I don't give a flying heck. Flying airplanes. I'm a poet and I'm not even aware of it. I was really under the impression that both when it dropped and now this was a pretty universally liked track, but considering its inclusion on this list, you know that's not the case. Put it down to overexposure, but I cannot fathom a droplet of hatred for this song. Hayley Williams absolutely kills it on that chorus. I would have loved to have seen her utilised more in this kind of fashion. Anyway, maybe B.O.B himself could be the worst component, but I like my little peeps in my Lonely Islands. I can handle and sometimes encourage my rappers to be bringing me a little cheese with their material. It would be easy to laugh this track off considering his very public flat earther opinion. Being a flat earther and having a song called Airplanes kind of feels like the equivalent of being like an anti-masker, but back in 2017 you had a song called Hand Sanitizer. But yeah, I'm not going to deny that this song is a very juicy wee bop. I cannot blame the girls that I went to high school with making this their Facebook caption on a weekly basis. I wish right now. If you skim through the headlines, 2011 was a really interesting year all in all, though the only story worth bringing up is the death of Randy Savage on May 20th, presumably so he could go to hell and kill Bin Laden for a second time. Of course, who cares about civil unrest, natural disasters and all that stuff when we had the rise of one of music's most notable animated groups, a band whose music videos were renowned more than some artists' entire output. I'm of course talking about your favourite Martians, who take up 21 spots on the bottom 100 tracks alone. There's also the inclusion of Nugget Biscuit by Tobuscus, so thankfully we saw him for what he was back then and didn't allow his career to flourish any further. Knowing that this was the calibre of horrible music back in 2011, it seems weird that out of all the people for the internet to hound on, They went for a 14-year-old girl.
7 a.m. waking up in the morning, gotta be fresh, gotta go downstairs, gotta have my bowl, gotta have cereal.
Now, I'm not going to try and come across as some pitchfork op-ed trying to say that Rebecca's melisma of Friday is meant to talk about the briefness but the suspense of the upcoming weekend or anything like that. I think we always tend to attach some greater meaning to some quote-unquote dumb songs when really we could just admit that we like them for whatever miscellaneous reason we want to give them. Let's be real though, it was absolutely mad how much hate was flung Rebecca Black's way for basically doing what any team would do if they had the resources: starring a music video with their pals. It's a by the number song, sure, but I feel like most of us nowadays can take it for what it is. A silly wee song, nothing remarkably horrible about it. If anything, it's a wee bit wholesome. Granted, I'm sure a lot of this hate came from other teenagers and young adults, and I say that because I know that I was one of those teenagers. I'm sure if Facebook or Twitter allowed me to, they would show some embarrassing posts about how I said that my ears were bleeding and it was the worst song ever made. We all do regrettable things as teenagers. If anyone deserved any criticism off the back of this song, it was Patrice Wilson, who could be argued exploited the naivety of children and their parents who had more money than sense, and by argued, I mean he almost definitely did.
I wrote the lyrics on a Thursday night going into a Friday. I was writing different songs all night and was like, wow, I've been up a long time and it's Friday. And I was like, wow, it is Friday.
Definitely not a man who approached his work with any level of care. And I'm not going to try and say that, yeah, this song doesn't deserve some criticism on some level, but if anyone was to bear the brunt of it, I don't think it was a teenage girl who was, I'm going to say, exploited and had to take on a lot of therapy in order to get over it. When you think of the horrible music that came out in 2011, it just is utterly laughable that a wee kind of wholesome novelty track like this was seen as being just as bad as a song like Transphobic Techno or I Need a Doctor. Just ludicrous. Unfortunately though, that's the end of the video. The Mayan calendar predicted that 2012 would be the end of human civilization as we know it. I'd say it's been a good run, but let's not end a lie. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, hit us with a like. Nah, I'm just pulling your chain though. If you saw the state of YouTube music back in 2012, you would be praying for some cataclysmic event to unfold. The worst list was a nightmare to scroll through when it came to this stuff. Absolutely ridden with people like Shane Dawson taking a stab at a career in music, though thankfully we saw him for what he was back then and didn't allow his career to flourish any further. In the year of our Lord and Saviour Gangnam Style, there were a few overhated track contenders, most notably Prime Candidate, Carly Rae Jepsen and Ill City on the track Good Time, though I think I'd be making my job far too easy going for that, since I think at least now we can agree that this is just an all-out bop. Well, I had other songs in the running like Imagine Dragons' Radioactive, like a track that's still quite hated to this day. Did we really need to give Taylor Swift circa 2012 such a hard time?
I remember when we broke up the first time, saying this is it, I've had enough. Cause like
Taylor Swift's 2012 album Red was really well received and deservedly so, home to some of our best songs and one of our strongest albums no doubt, but boy were those singles teared into. I think it was because I was starting to get involved in YouTube communities and YouTube commentators like Todd in the Shadows, and a quantity of dollary is what we'll call the second one. These kind of people were happy to tear in to some of the big singles off of Red. This wasn't out of the ordinary, as despite the quality of prior singles like Mean, Mine and Love Story, the internet just seemed to have it out for Taylor to the point you'd think it was her that invaded the stage and stole that mic in 2009. For whatever reason, we are never getting back together bear the brunt of this criticism, and it just baffles me. I know You Were Trouble, sure, it has that try hard drop which just feels utterly damp and gimmicky, and 22 is a harmless albeit plain cut. Both songs stand out as being the weakest songs Taylor had put out at this point, but Never Getting Back Together is a good song. I see a few comments flying about that she's 23 but writes songs like a 12-year-old and all that kind of stuff, but I'm failing to see what's worth getting worked up about. Maybe some of the lyrics are quote unquote childish, but considering it's meant to be a breakup song, and a humorous one at that, that immaturity is intentional and honestly works well. Not only do I find it a nice enough song lyrically, but I really love the driving bass line on this, omnipresent acoustic guitar riff, and that chorus, just all wonderful little landmarks. I will say that this feels like a kind of song where critics and fans online are like wholly split on them, and I would never try and say that one is more right than the other.
Getting back together.
They're going out and 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 they're going out and.
I'm not gonna give a slice of news for this year, just roll the clip. I don't know if it was just a bunch of good guesses or not, but I pretty much guessed who the main culprits of the 2013 worst list would be. Blurred Lines and the a-ha sampling Pitbull track feel this moment thoroughly deserving their sentences for crimes against my ears. Now, most of the songs I've salvaged thus far, and I will salvage later on this video, are probably all artists that you expected me to discuss before you even clicked on the video, and this next one is definitely a formidable artist. But considering what they were doing beforehand and even doing now, it feels so silly that this is a track that became one of the lowest rated songs of 2013. Just so silly. So silly. Silly.
You know that we are still young, so don't be dumb. Don't trust anyone, 'cause you only live once.
Yep, that's why I put that weird emphasis on Formidable, because the sampling of the Joy Formidable's Weren't is just absolutely genius. I actually think that alone is worth calling this track overhated, but it might make my job here a bit too easy. Maybe people feel like it's a bit too easy making a YOLO joke back in 2013, but I think the Lonely Island Trio hit it with some funny quips that would make Weird Al's Polka Heart feel all warm and full. The sheer extent to which they claim they'll bubble wrap themselves, not taking stairs and triple locking chastity belts. I don't know, just gets a giggle out of me. Also, the fact this could be the first time someone heard Kendrick Lamar is just hilarious to me. Just going from him giving you proper advice and then checking out his stuff to see him tell tales of struggle and addiction and racism on Good Kid, like, you would be a wee bit shook. This song's low placement on our worst list probably just comes down to comedy, which isn't surprising. In the words of Lindsay Ellis,
comedy is the quickest to age and the most likely to age poorly.
That explains why each year that we discuss in this video usually has about 20 to 30 comedy songs on it, but when we're talking about YOLO here, like, it's not poorly aged, it's got some decent lines, and I think that interpolation like borders on genius, so that's enough for me to say that it is overhated and that it deserves saving.
You ought to look out.
This was the year that I graduated from high school, but a few wee things kind of took away the spotlight from me, you know, like ISIS and Ebola and those penguins of Madagascar, but, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. Music. Yeah, there's some real contenders for worst songs ever when it comes to 2014. All About That Bass was true to its line of all the right junk in all the right places, deservedly placing near the top of this worst list. And then there's the Chainsmokers, who hit out with #Selfie, which is a song that lasts 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and that's all I want to say about that. 2014 was a year that a certain act would rise into prominence. It wouldn't be until late 2015 that they would have their big breakout hit, but they definitely became a lot more notable. People were paying more attention to them out with their already established fan base. Was the response positive? It's like someone found a way to concoct literally everything that I hate about music into a single track.
I ponder of something great. My lungs will fill and then deflate. They fill with fire, exhale desire. I know it's dire, my time today.
Car Radio is by no means a perfect song, at least in my opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are willing to fight me on that. If I have any sort of like gripe with it, it suffers from a little bit of late Eminem disease, where rhyming just happens for rhyming's sake. It just feels like pure nursery rhyme stuff at certain points anyway. I'm sure the reason why so many people seem to have a hate for this song comes down to Tyler Joseph's timbre. It's that nasally cadence which successors like Hobo Johnson have run with, possibly making it even more insufferable for some. I would have thought that growing up with singers like Tom DeLonge would maybe desensitise people to it, but to cut this tangent short, the vocal delivery doesn't bother me at all. I brought up that the lyrics can feel a bit half-baked and tacky, but I largely like what I hear on car radio. The whole sentiment of letting your mind wander and process things naturally, all bubbling up sonically, this satisfying electronic climax feels really rewarding to me. Again, not without its detrimental quirks, but it's far closer to being a good song than it is a bad one. All the best in finding those other 19 pilots. It was around 2015 that I was like properly submerging myself into my journalism course, so I can remember countless stories from that year, but the one that I remember the most vividly was definitely when we like had the Paris Agreement regarding climate change, and we just agreed that it would never be a problem and we're going to deal with it, and yep, it never reared its ugly head again, did it? If there was ever a year this decade of undeserving placements on a worst list, then it was absolutely 2015. The lovely millennial tinted glasses track, Stressed Out, Adele's sincere and heartfelt Hello, an unlikely collaboration that proved to work like a charm in the form of 4-5 Seconds. All of these songs landed in the bottom 200 of 2015, and I don't get it, personally, but I think most of you watching this will be like a fair chunk of you that go like, what the heck, like, I don't think I'll be preaching to the choir, but choosing any of these is the most overhated track of 2015. The artist that we're going to talk about is a bit of a punchline nowadays, and I do think they deserve a bit more slack. The song in question, it's freaking awesome. Oh, it's not different. It's freaking Downtown. If we're being honest, this song was always going to get some level of hate regardless of how good it actually was. It was the lead single of Macklemore and Ryan Lewis's follow-up to their Grammy-winning debut, which infamously bet out Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid Mad City, that added fire to the already red-hot culture vulture claims. They were never cool, but it definitely didn't help matters, despite the fact that Macklemore publicly apologised for winning, and Kendrick said that he's an A+ guy.
When he sent it to me, I was like, okay, you know, I could see him feeling that type of way because he's a good dude. But I think for confirmation from the world, you know, he probably felt like he had to put it out there, which he didn't need to do. But they don't take nothing away from him anyway, because I know where his heart is at, he cool.
Brief swimmer history lesson over with. Downtown isn't a flawless track, especially with that line Macklemore has about dragging his balls across concrete. Definitely not the kind of imagery that I need when I'm trying to vibe to this like really smooth wee tune. But I do think it's trying a lot, Downtown. And I don't know why my voice went like that, but it's trying a lot, and I do think the ambition pays off pretty handsomely. It's just a big old electric cheesy pop rap track, which is obviously taking inspiration from the synth funk revival Mark Ronson stirred up with Uptown Funk. It doesn't feel like a cheap imitation though, as it's trying to flesh out and juggle a lot more. 5 verses, one feeling like a macho West Side Story recreation, and a massive chorus that just puts a big dumb smile in my face. Nowadays, I don't blame anyone for being like an outspoken critic of Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, especially after the release that they dropped the following year. But Downtown is still as fun and as saccharine as it was 5 years ago.
Downtown.
2020 has been absolutely rotten so far, but there's a reason why a lot of people just call it 2016 Part 2. I'm not going to dive in to the plethora of horrible things that happened this year, but I know you're probably asking yourself to ask me, would Sausage Party land in the top 10 worst things that happened in 2016? Very possibly. And when it comes to music, it was absolutely diabolical. Home to some of the worst singles I've ever heard in my life. Meghan Trainor makes an appearance yet again with No. Ganache, is that how you say it? Ganache hit out with Naff's song I Hate You, I Love You. Even the last overhated artist, Macklemore, provided their own ordeal of white privilege too. It was incredibly bad for covers as well. Both Callum Scott and Disturbed trying their best to piss off their respective OG artists. In Callum Scott's case, it worked.
I'm in the corner watching you kiss her. Oh!
And it wouldn't be a horrible year for music without some horrible YouTube tracks, with the winner in this department undoubtedly being No Rest for the Triggered by Chris Ray Gun. That being said though, as low as my spirits were having to crawl through these bottom singles, I was determined I'd find something, and I did. It just so happened to be from an artist that I slagged off a few years ago. But anyway, hey.
I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much and that's an issue, but I'm okay.
Much like We're Never Getting Back Together, Closer got a fair bit of love from critics, but boy, was the internet mostly negative in this one. I see a lot of people say it uses the same 3 chords and it's inherently bad because of that. But by that merit, the intro to Psycho Killer sucks because you can play that on one bass string. Simplicity isn't inherently bad. I like the drop on Closer. It's hazy, kind of dreamy. Yeah, I like it. It's one of the few things that the Chainsmokers are good at, making some pretty nice post-choruses. The only thing that they're better at is breaking COVID-19 guidelines. As people smarter than me have pointed out, Closer was one of the few hits out in 2016 that didn't seem to marinate in the same depravity and melancholy that made the year so infamous. Is it a little Winston Duran lyrically? Undeniably so, but the whole intent on focusing on the now, taking in all the joy you possibly can, and never getting older, it's damn sweet, and I can't blame a single soul who would rank this as one of their favourite tracks of 2016. I only came around to Semi recently because when it was really big, I was working in a very claustrophobic Burger King kitchen, which was also during one of like the hottest summers I've ever witnessed during my lifetime. But even though it's pretty amateurish in a lot of ways, develop a soft spot for it. I'm really sure that's what set my heart's on. I promise that I've got a brain. The only place that you hear the name Paul more times than a Jimmy Neutron marathon is if you have somebody read out the bottom 200 singles of 2017 list to you. A great bonding exercise to all you lovers out there. 33% of the bottom 30 is composed of songs by either Jake or Logan Paul. When you take into account Rice Gum, who has 4 of his own songs in there, this is the most dominated year for bad YouTube music since 2012. The radio music side of things wasn't doing much better, from Logic's Who Can Relate Suicide Awareness Anthem to Ed Sheeran's unseasoned dancehall attempt. It was a pretty poor year, no, not quite as bad as 2016. That being said, I really did struggle trying to find an overhated song from 2017 that I would like be really adamant to defend, that I would say I like so much. But I did find something that I can justify and I think deserves a bit less flack.
Play with that pussy like peekaboo, play with that pussy like peekaboo, play with that pussy like peekaboo, play with that pussy like peekaboo.
Not to be confused with the Sushi and the Banshees track of the same name. If you remember anything about this song, it will be the disc chorus, which you hear that you think, oh, is there homophobia or transphobia? It was because there's a line where I'm just gonna put it up on the screen because I'm not saying this out loud, but Lil Yachty eventually went, oh, I'm so sorry, my bad, I'll own up to it, I meant to say flute. It's a fucking clarinet. It's a fucking clarinet. I think this line alone made an easy addition to anyone's worst songs of 2017 list, but I think it would be a bit harsh to bully a track for that one line alone when it's pretty harmless, even a little funny. I'm sure for others it will come down to Yachty's whole demeanour, as I'm aware he already gets a fair amount of criticism for being too corny, and while Teenage Emotions, the album it appears on, was definitely a slog, for reasons both intentional and not, Peekaboo is a song that I can have a solid time with. There's always been a certain charm to Yachty's style of rapping, which was apparent from the 2016 XXL Cypher. He may not have been the strongest performer,
All these niggas stealing my style, can I get my flow back?
but there's a sort of appeal I can only describe as deadpan that is part hilarious, part entertaining. It's like Nathan Fielder deciding to pick up a mic for a rap battle. Even with the aforementioned clumsy lines and the unremarkable but not bad Migos guest feature, I just think that Yachty's confidence is pretty cool, and I think the beat's pretty hypnotising, and I just think it's neat. I know it's not the highest praise to give a 2017 track, but when you see what contenders they were for worst song, and somebody would hear this and go, yep, this definitely deserves to be my top 10 bottom songs. Wild. Absolutely, absolutely wild.
Peekaboo, peekaboo, peekaboo. Hey. Hey, this that Eastside Johnny Big Ridiculous.
Speaking of dumb songs that I can't help but enjoy.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way. Yeah.
While 2018 wasn't lacking big rap songs with repetitive choruses that are hilarious, one has one over Venom by playing into the comedic nature, almost to the point where it borders on becoming the finish line braggadocious anthem it truly wants to be. Here we go though, the moment you've been waiting for, my top 5 moments from J-Rock's win. Number 5. Number 4.
I'm riding with the toast.
Number 3.
Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way, yeah. Yeah. Get out the way, get the fuck up out my way, yeah.
Number 2 might be a technicality, but the fact there's a 5-minute long Genius video about this song. And number 1, I really didn't like this song when I first heard it. I kind of thought that the ironic status and meme status it had, I just thought that it was giving it, I don't know, just found it annoying. But now that I've listened to it far too many times, yeah, I just think this is a blast, an absolute blast. 2018 Worst List wasn't anything special in terms of smelliness, with a few XXXTentacion tracks, but if it served one purpose, it was foreshadowing how Tom MacDonald's reign of terror wasn't any closer to finishing. We went from 8 notably bad tracks to 11. The horrors of white fragility were inescapable. Then you have Negative XP's delightful Scott Pilgrim song, and by delightful I mean horrible salt of the earth. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. So with that, and any song by Tom MacDonald, pick your poison. Racism and misogyny were well represented in the bottom of this bloody worst year list for 2019, but happy to report that the last song we're going to talk about today is a great song by a black female artist.
I want it, I got it. I want it, I got it. I want it, I got it. I want it, I got it.
So what I did there is what we call in the business a bit. And yeah, this song didn't do Ariana Grande any favours for the criticism she gets for being, we'll say, racially ambiguous. And I just want to be upfront and say that I don't think this song is overhated in terms of the conversations that were made about it, in terms of appropriation. I think those conversations are well needed, much like the Macklemore debacle a few years back in terms of culture vulture stuff. These conversations are needed, and I can't possibly bring it up without bringing up that context. You can't separate, you have to acknowledge stuff. But anyway, what do I think is good about the song, other than the white privilege ness of it? Now that I've made it clear, the way in which I think this song is overhated is also just think it sucks in general. I've seen people try to compare it to pop star turn rap attempts like Miley Cyrus on 23 and overhated Hall of Fame member Taylor Swift on Ready For It, but those two examples feel like oranges to Ariana's apples. For starters, Ariana doesn't lose an ooze of the appeal and playfulness while treading these new waters. How she plays with her upper register in the third verse, the way she drags out the line, "Think retail therapy my new addiction." Even the love or hate interpolation of favourite things just makes this song a real joy. Like I said before, we need to have these conversations about white privilege and racism and appropriation and all that stuff. So if you feel like that factors in to your hatred of this song, not going to stop you. Not going to stop you. If it doesn't factor in to your dislike of this song, you're just goofy. And there we have it, People and Poople, the most overhated songs of the 2010s. I'm looking forward to doing more 2010s lists, but for now, let me know what you made of my picks for overhated songs of the 2010s. But more importantly, I want to know what your picks are. I'm sure there's some hot takes that you've got that you may have already posted down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give us a like, a subscription as well, or subscription, I sound like a postie there, but if you want to subscribe, that'd be great too. Links to my Patreon and Ko-fi are down if you want to give any sort of support monetarily wise, and also a link to my Twitch. Stream there Wednesdays and Sundays 8 PM BST. But that's all the promo that I've got to do just now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, stay safe, and stay hydrated.